I've been working on this Go Joe project for the last bunch of weeks now, off and on. This is a Rupp Go Joe Mini, and this video will only be interested to mini bike geeks, or particularly maybe Rupp geeks. Over here is the original body from the Go Joe as it came to us. It's been cleaned up. Somebody advertised go-kart, $100, and I drove instantly up to buy this because I've never seen one before. I guess they're pretty tough to come by. This is an NOS body that my son found at a car show swap meet. It was pretty rare that he came across. Actually, there was two of them and he bought them both. The other one is blue. This one's not been cleaned up. It's just as it came. I had to add the nose piece to it, best effort I could without spending real money and effort, because it didn't come with it like that one. My guess is these were in all different colors and there was a bunch of them. They might have been a mold used later on for a carnival ride, is my guess. It's much thicker, but for some reason there was a length requirement and they didn't make them with the nose on them. So I thought at least I would try to put a nose on it. I do have all the decals, and we'll be adding that to it. We had the seat remade. That's over here. That'll be fit both. Well, here's the frame, and I just thought I'd shoot this video before I buttoned it up, because once those bodies are on, it's kind of hard to take them off because the handlebars and the cabling and everything goes through the hole in the middle of the body. I'm thinking in best case I have a removable handlebar with this pin, and the best case is you take the handlebars off, pull the cables through, maybe you can lift the body enough, rotate it to take care of things. Now, the first thing I learned about these Rupp Mini Go Joes is the frames were just a flat frame. Just, see if I can get my finger, just this long piece was all they were, and this was a hinge point here. Adults would ride these things, they have no suspension, and eventually these frames would turn into a banana, and the wheels would rub on the body and then rub through in many cases. Speaking of wheels, there they are. So the first thing I did was to beef up the frame. Also, these stirrups always bent as well because it was bearing the weight. Two stirrups on each side for the running boards. First thing I did was add these two skid runners down the middle and attached them into the front of the engine cradle. That now makes it a box section frame. I think it's got to make it much stronger. Then I secured the stirrups back to the frame. I just think it made a much stronger frame and a little bit of a skid protection for the engine cradle. We also put this reinforcement on both sides because that axle is kind of hanging out there, kind of vulnerable. That, of course, adds a world of strength to that. I guess maybe starting from front to back, I don't know. We gave it the little heim joints. Instead of, they just had a bent rod with a pin that went through. However, I kind of like the simplicity and primitiveness of that steering, and I didn't really want to mess around much with that design. It's kind of cool. I made the handlebars. Well, first of all, this one didn't come with handlebars to us, so I had these set of bars yet left over from another Rupp mini bike, figuring that was similar to what they used. However, the chrome was rotten, so we just painted it argent. This is a real low buck. Lots of time, but very low money goes into my projects. I'm not about to have a set of handlebars re-chromed or paid him $40 for a decent one. But I built this perch, steel perch, and down here, this long, that's a socket, like a 15/16 socket, and on the steering post I welded like a 15/16 coupling nut. So it's got the whole length of the socket, and then I drilled a hole, and then this this pin holds it, but it also keeps all my cables routed, honestly. This headlight, these never came with headlights. This headlight was off of some kind of a moped that I had years ago. So I thought it was a good use. Just had to make a little headlight base mount that went underneath the handlebar clamps. It's kind of got a bicycle seat clamp on the light. That's the way it came. And that gives you your ability to adjust the light. Otherwise, I used Rupp style grips that came with it. This originally had a snowmobile type throttle. I couldn't come up with a good working snowmobile throttle for this that looked kind of period, so I went with the Rupp style grips. Of course, this is a kill switch. This is a modified kill switch, which is actually an electric start. I wanted this to be electric start. I'm a big old boy, and if I was ever going to ride this, it would be like a flea market or car show cruiser. I didn't want it to get off and go around and tug a rope, so I gave it an electric start. Now 12-volt electric starts are really difficult to come by for these little Tecumsehs. So I had to build the electric start out of two of them. I had a 12-volt from a larger Tecumseh and a 110-volt from a smaller Tecumseh. It takes a lot. You have to take them apart. You have to cut the shaft. You have to weld the two shafts together. You have to weld the mount onto this case, onto the 12-volt case, the mount that's correct for this engine off the 12-volt. It took a lot of effort, but that's part of the fun of this for me, is the modifications and sweating the details. So we got that to work. There was a little bit of problems once we put it together with the drive, and we broke the welds on the shaft the first time. There wasn't enough penetration and all that. We finally redid it and got it to go. So that's kind of the 12-volt. This motor is kind of neat how they have it tucked in there. That's it came stock with a 3.5 horse. And back then they had a style with a gas tank that was mounted here. Even stock, that gas tank was very difficult to fill with the body on. So I devised this gas tank setup by simply building this big aluminum angle iron off the head bolts. It did a great thing because now the body cutout, the rear body cutout comes around like here. This is very accessible. Then I mounted a key switch to the back of the gas tank mount. Kind of the father lockout. If the child's been a bad boy or bad girl, lock out, take the key. All they have to do is unplug it and they're on their way. As long as I had this out here, I thought it might be nicer to run the pull start up where it's easier to access. Again, the body cuts through here. So I extended that. I used a carburetor that has kind of a nice, easy to work choke. Again, everything accessing from the back. And in addition to that, I found a carburetor that had the pulse line for the fuel. That way, if you're doing a cold start, I have a primer bulb for the driver. So kind of the poor man's choke or double choke. It does have a mechanical choke and it's got the primer bulb, so you can start it from here and prime it if you need a cold start. So as I'm back up front, knowing that these handlebars and things would be separated from time to time, I made my wiring very easy to separate. We're using a trailer plug, and the trailer plug, I should use a 5 plug, I didn't, and so this is my ground. Goes right to a bolt. But the trailer plug runs all the power back and forth that needs to be. Turn on the headlight, the tail light comes on, the power from the battery comes forward. So to get these things completely loose and free, though, you still have to undo the cables. I'd rather undo them at the handlebars than at the rear. Let's see, where was I? I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. Had to get I think it's called a rectifier, so that the AC, this motor does have an AC charging, a little one like from a snowblower for snowblower lights, so that the AC can be changed into battery charging, DC for charging the battery. Once the body is on, it's really difficult to get at the battery. So I know batteries are going to go dead, they need to recharge, they need to whatever. So I actually gave myself the ability right back here to charge and or jump start the battery. Very easy. Of course, it's just simple frame ground, and then here I've got a positive with a heavy cable. Ruining my taping. Then let's see what else. I had a tail light. I happen to have this old Rupp tail light left over, and I couldn't figure out a nice place to put it where it made sense. I didn't want to be part of the body. I didn't want to have more things to unplug. So kind of fashioned this quasi trailer mount. Kind of acted as a protector for the light at first. And then I thought, well, as long as I have that, I can put a little stupid little trailer hitch. So did that. Of course, something like that takes a long time to figure out, but it looks very simple. The brakes were kind of an interesting affair. This is pretty much the way Rupp had it designed. It's a nice floating design that they had. With these longer pegs that kind of ride this whole opening. So it really floats and little self-aligns. I had this cable with threads on it, so I cut this tube, put a half round in the end of the tube, and then used these other cylinders. This, of course, is the lock cylinder for the rear. I put a second lock cylinder, but didn't lock it up front. I can turn this nut now and adjust my brakes much better than loosening this and pulling that. Built the chain guard. Now again, with the body on, how do you undo a front chain guard? Rupp had 2 bolts up here. I made this bracket that comes up, has a hole drilled through it, built this chain guard that has a big pin on it, rubber coated pin into a rubber bushing, and so from the rear you can feed it in there, then put it down easy. I've got a locator peg for one of the 2 holes down here, and then threaded for this, so it's just a big thumb screw to get the chain guard off. Of course, all the bearings are new. The shaft, the axle is new. I had to cut it apart to get it apart. It was all rusted, so I just used solid key stock for the whole axle. The sprocket had bad. There we go. Sprocket had bad set screws. It was a loose bore, so I simply added a farm supply bore to the back side. And there's my beautiful wife. She comes out to visit my taping. And one of the other things I did, a couple other things I did, small, is there is a oil drain, so it's easy to drain the oil. Just run a pipe out the side and a cap down. And then way down in there is an engine tensioner. I always build engine tensioners. Those 2 bolts, maybe you can see them, 2 bolts are, there's the other bolt. That gives us the ability to tension up the chain and keep the engine square. That's why 2 bolts. I usually use 1 bolt, but 2 bolts, you can keep the engine square to the sprocket, which is important. Trying to see if there's anything else that is worth mentioning here. Again, it's all geek. Well, the battery just seemed to be a perfect place for the battery to land. Just welded a steel tray down the bottom and lined it with rubber. It fits perfect width-wise between the frame and right up against the rear cross support. Plenty of room under the seat. The only good place to put the battery. So that's probably all there is to talk about. Again, most people will be bored the first 30 seconds. If you're really into this kind of stuff, then it all makes sense to you. Oh yeah, I even had a kind of custom make the pipe too. I had to rotate it down from where it normally would have been, so that it was out where I needed it to be, far away from things. All the little tweaks and things you do to make these things work right. So that's about it. I'll shoot more once I get the video. This is a running machine. It starts and runs the way it is. It's a good idea to do that. We're going to put wheels on and still run it before we put the body on. And after that, then we'll button it up for good and graphic up the body and everything. So anyway, if you like Rupps and Go Joes and Mini Go Joes, well, here's one of the more interesting ones I've seen. We'll shoot more later. Thanks.